Hello, everyone. Welcome again to another Teacher Joseph podcast. This week's weekly lesson is all about the TV license, and because of that, we're going to be talking about some news headlines today related to crime. But first of all, let me tell you, if you don't have a TV license, they can order you to pay £1,000. That's a penalty. The court can tell you you have to pay that if you're caught without one because it's criminal. It's against the law not to have a TV license and own a TV. They also can order you to pay legal costs. So if the government, for example, decide that you're trying to cheat them, or if the police get involved and take you to court, you may also have to pay the cost of the court fees. The court may also order you to pay compensation to the TV companies or anyone else involved if you don't have a TV license, and in some cases you can be sent to jail if you refuse to pay the penalty and other enforcement methods that have been tried against you. Now, in England or Wales, this is where it gets political, you also may have to pay another charge of 40%, which is referred to as the victim surcharge. I don't know what that is. It will also affect your credit rating, which will stop you borrowing money in the future. And again, if you don't have a TV license, the enforcement officers who push for you to pay this fine, they can arrange for your car to be clamped. That's when they come with those big metal things and they attach them to your wheels so that you can't drive. And then they will take your car away and they'll sell it. And those TV license officers that I've been telling you about, they can actually come inside your home and take away anything they want in order to pay for your TV license. It says here a TV license covers all TV channels, even though it's only used to fund the BBC. It gets a bit complicated at this point because we know it's used to fund the BBC, but the law says you need one if you're watching anything. And there's lots of other information on the website tvlicensing.co.uk. Isn't it strange in the UK the things that people get upset about? I mean, the government gets really, really upset about TV license enforcement, but it seems perfectly okay with other kinds of crimes. In fact, they're so busy letting people out these days that it does raise a question over priorities. And that brings me to my next story because the government, they are considering house arrest proposals. Now, just so you know, as you know, we're currently releasing many prisoners because our jails are full, and we're looking at other ways to integrate criminals because we don't want to just lock them away anymore. We're trying to be moving into the area of reform instead of simply punishment. And that's currently being looked at by the government. So one thing they're looking at is house arrest. And that means that you are told by the court that you've done a bad thing. They find you guilty of the crime. So imagine I come and I steal your television, okay? And then you try to stop me stealing your television. So I punch you in the face and I take your television anyway. Then the court will tell me, oh, Teacher Joseph, you tried to steal that student's TV and you harmed them. therefore you must go to prison and you can't do your podcasts there. Well, if they do that, I would have to go to prison. But now what it's saying here is they're considering house arrest. And that means you don't go to prison, but the judge says, okay, you will have to stay at home. And you're only allowed out for 1 hour every day. And you must be home by, let's say, 6 p.m. in the evening. So it's kind of like a lockup, but it's at home, monitored through an ankle chain. That's a little device that's attached to your leg that you can't remove. We're going to read about that now. This is a story from The Guardian today, Tuesday, 22nd of October. It says, house arrest proposals being considered as part of sentencing overhaul. Okay, so house arrest I've just explained. Sentencing is what the judge does. Okay, the judge, that's the man in the court, he decides what will happen to you. He will say, okay, 10 years in prison, house arrest, penalty, that's his job. And that, when he gives that decision, that's called a sentence. He hammers his desk with a little hammer, which we call a mallet, 3 times. Go, go, go. Teacher Joseph, I sentence you to 3 years in prison for stealing the television, for example. Okay, so the overhaul is something which is being completely changed. So let me read that sentence again. House arrest proposals to be considered as part of sentencing overhaul. That just means this idea of sentencing is being completely changed. It's being overhauled. To overhaul is to change something completely. And it's overhaul. Nice word that, I like it. Okay, here we are. So the courts could get powers to impose a punishment of house arrest on criminals or under a new comprehensive overhaul of sentences to be launched today. The review, which will be chaired, and it tells you who's looking after it, by a former Conservative. That just means the committee will have a chairperson. All very formal, isn't it? It will reassess jail time handed to criminals found guilty of crimes. This is all happening in England and Wales. It doesn't mention Scotland here in this report because Scotland has a different legal system. So it says here, currently there's 1,100 criminals serving sentences of 5 years or more who are about to be released. They're being released early to try to deal with this crisis in prisons. The prison population in England and Wales has risen by 93% and currently stands at 87,000 people, and that's going to rise to 114,800 by 2028. And one possibility is to give judges the power to hand out sentences which force offenders to stay at home while being monitored with electronic tags. Yeah, I remember it must be about 20 years ago now, a long time ago. I was happily coming home from somewhere. Where was it? It must have been in London. Yeah, and outside my door was this guy lying on the street. I don't know who he was or what happened to him, but I noticed he had some electronic device attached to his leg at the bottom. It was like a big round metal thing covered in plastic. And it was showing, he was lying there on the ground and this metal thing or plastic thing was sticking out. And that's the first time I'd ever seen a tag. I didn't even know they existed. It was very interesting. Anyway, yeah, it says here they're currently reviewing how they could use these, what they call ankle bracelets, or electronic bracelets, as they're referred to. It says using electronic bracelets in the United States, offenders are often allowed to earn income, maintain family and other relationships, and attend their appointments for their drug abuse. Officials have also been monitoring the use of compulsory watches for those on probation. That's like a little smartwatch, so that the offenders can receive messages telling them when they have to go to appointments. A senior prison officer said this kind of technology could help offenders who have chaotic lives. It says, we in the prison industry like this idea of a wristwatch for prisoners. Very interesting. Very interesting. Officials have also been looking at ways in which prisoners could reduce the amount of time they spend in jail by earning points. I don't like I don't like the sound of that. Okay, and then the story goes on to say how house arrest proposals are being considered. Well, that might work okay, I suppose. Yeah. By the way, in other news, our chain of newsagents, WH Smith, if you've ever been to the UK, on every corner, in every street, you'll find a WH Smith, which is there to sell newspapers. They're going to start selling vinyl records again. That's the large round discs which were around when I was a boy. Vinyl records are making a comeback, and so WH Smith are going to start selling them. Oh, lovely. And another piece of news, small-scale breweries. You may have heard the term craft beer here in the UK. Breweries which make beer, smaller ones, often refer to their beer as craft beer. But that term is about to be removed because it's too confusing, and they're going to call their beer in the future indie beer. Let's just read a bit of that. Small breweries in the UK are ditching the term craft beer in favour of indie beer, warning that global corporations have bamboozled, that just means confused, many drinkers into believing that formerly independent brands are still not mainstream and hidden. Okay, I'm not sure I get the point of that, but anyway, it looks like they are changing how they refer to these independent companies that make beer. They're going to be called indie beers. And the companies probably are going to be called the companies that produce indie beers, indie beer companies. Let's see. Corporate branding has been so effective that 40% of people who were surveyed thought that Neck Oil, which is brewed by Heineken, was actually an indie or independent beer. Yeah, indie means independent. So this is why everyone's confused. They think that some of the big companies are deceiving them. So in this case, Heineken producing Neck Oil. It looks like a craft beer. It looks very small, like a very small company, I mean, but it's not. It's a major player. So to avoid this kind of confusion, they're saying that in the future, craft beers will be called the indie beers. And it says here, yeah, 40% of people in a poll thought that Beavertown's Neck Oil was an independent beer, because it's marketed as a craft beer and it's actually made by Heineken. Oh well, that's interesting, isn't it? And that's it. So that's some news stories from today. For those of you who follow me on my social media, as you know, I have an issue with my RSS feed currently. I found a workaround for it, a way to get podcasts to you on YouTube without using my RSS. So podcasts should be appearing as normal. My podcast feed entirely, my whole podcast feed was disappearing yesterday at one point. Thank you to those of you who sent me messages. I think 2 or 3 of you contacted me to say that my RSS feed was missing. Yeah, it keeps changing to private, which automatically means that you can't see it. But I think I've been able to fix that now, so everything should be okay. Well, that's it from me for today. I hope you've enjoyed this, and let's talk again soon. See you all. Bye.